think there might be two. I grabbed her to check. Hello.
Hey, Paula.
Hello, David. I don't see you anywhere.
No, we're just audio.
Okay. I thought because remember, well, yesterday I saw a bunch of people on the side. I guess as they come, they'll join.
Oh, down at the bottom, you might have to hit where it says participants.
Nope, I don't even see them. Oh, I see. No, that's ID. Wait, wiggle it.
I can hear you.
Oh, hello, sir. Manage participants.
On Burma, I can hear you.
Oh, I see now. Oh boy,
Okay.
we got some people on already. Wow, Chief, are you here?
Please tell me you can't see me.
It says Chief Joseph Kelly, real big across my screen. Oh, John, happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday to multiple people.
Oh,
Yes.
John, we can see you, but we can't hear you.
I can unmute him. There, I just unmuted him.
Oh, thank
John,
you. Yeah, I'm here.
happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. And happy birthday to David, too.
Happy birthday, man.
Oh, yes, we can see you, sir.
It's frightening.
It is.
Turn your videos off if you want.
Hi, Ori. Where's Ori? Let's unmute him.
If you prefer this or this.
So you guys cannot see me, right?
What's that?
You cannot see me, right?
I can see every part of your house.
You can. That's just creepy.
No, if your video thing is clicked off, no one can see you.
Okay.
So you can choose what, I do a lot of these meetings. I do a lot of work like this, and people are all over the map. Some people don't want to be seen, and that's fine. Some people are basically going around their backyard and taking their computer with them.
And I see we have Hi, Marianne.
Hi. I don't particularly want to be seen. I suppose I could hide myself, but
Yeah.
you know what I look like.
I think the big lettering is more obnoxious than the pictures.
No comment.
Paula,
Yes.
somewhere on the participants list, you should be able to add me as a host or a co-host.
Okay, so
On mine, I
are
have a
okay.
mute and then I
Make a co-host. There you go. Do you want to make David Bria a co-host? Sure. Okay, you are co-host. How's that?
Cool, thank you.
Or do you want to be host?
It doesn't matter. I mean, basically, it'll let me control who's muted and who's not, which is what we'll do during public comment.
Okay. Well, look, she has Yardley behind her.
That's a good view.
It is.
I realize you can change
Oh yeah, you
your
can
virtual
put your own background. That's true.
Oh, that's
How are
fun.
you all? Well, I'm not going to put me on there because I'm not, but.
Come on, Paula. I did it. You should.
Oh, heck no. Oh, I see Liz is here.
Hi.
So David, do you want me to start unmuting people?
Yeah, it looks like everyone on the call is us. We don't have any residents yet.
Okay.
How many people can this host?
Up to
Like
100.
thousands.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Damn.
We're fancy here.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more people will attend if they don't have to actually walk down the street to come to the meeting.
Well, there you go. This could be a new thing.
I could get into this. This is not bad.
This is great.
No doubt.
This is great. I mean, I think it's a great option.
Absolutely.
Oh, look at Yuri's background.
Yeah, he's in space. Mhm.
I see Tom on. And then there's a
Yes.
number. There's a number ending in 4150. Who's that?
I don't know. It's not the mayor.
That could be Tom doing the audio through his phone, even though he's logged on.
Okay.
Let me see. It's not his work number. All right.
It's more official than outer space.
You were asking who is 4150?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. 4150 is my number, Peter Godotti.
Hi, Pete.
Hello.
Now, the operators can also mute and unmute if there's noise coming from certain mics. And there's also like, people might know that there's like a hand raising function here somewhere if they want to speak and they're muted.
Yes, yeah, so we'll kind of go over that once we're closer to starting, but that's how we're going to try to moderate public comment if we have any, is through that
Great.
function.
So are we just gonna unmute council people for the meeting itself and then wait until after, David, to allow people to talk?
So right now, everyone can mute and unmute themselves. You know, we could limit that, but that's
Okay.
sort of a pain. So I'm going to trust everyone on council and our vendors to take care of that on their own.
All right, there's Chris.
I can hear you guys. You hear me?
Yes, Tom.
Yep.
There. Chris is on now.
Yeah, I'm on.
So it looks like we're just waiting for Caroline and Ryan Barry. There's Ryan.
Is Matt Ross here? I don't see his name.
I don't see him either.
Okay.
And Ryan.
Hey,
Matt, you
you're
there?
You're
Yep,
0135,
I'm here.
right?
Yep, that's me.
Oh, okay, good.
Trying to rename everyone. This is fun. And I should mention, we do have the record function enabled. So we will be able to either post the audio file or, Marianne, if you need it to do minutes, we will have.
Yes, I will need it. Thank you.
Right, we will have a recording of the
Thank
meeting.
you.
Hi, Bucky.
Hello.
Lucky.
Bucky, we can see you.
I know, it's scary.
Should I go on
Nobody
video? I
sneeze.
feel left out.
Nobody
I'm
sneeze
not.
and nobody cough because we're all in very close range, closer than 6 feet.
I got to figure out the background photo. That's very cool.
Can you hear me?
Settings and virtual background.
Oh, that's cool. Can you hear me?
Yep. Somebody's making margaritas.
Make
Sounds,
two
that's
of them.
my speed.
Yardley's in the 21st century. What can we say? We made it.
You look so funny, Ori.
Keeps taking away one of your ears.
Yeah, it's because the background behind me is not smooth, so I keep losing an arm or, you know. Oh, I think part of it is the headset. I see.
Yes. I'm wearing one too, so I can type.
When you were in space, it looked like an astronaut.
Mhm.
Well, you look, I'm just trying to do my part in quarantine, and I figured outer space would be pretty good.
All right, everyone. I have 7:30 over here. We ready to get started?
Yes.
I am.
All right. Away we go. I have no gavel, but tap, tap, tap. 7:30. I'll call this Yardley Council meeting to order. We have no flag to look at, I'm sure, but perhaps we could all just picture one in our mind and say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag
Flag
of
of
the
the
United
United States of America.
of America.
To the
To
republic.
the republic for which it
stands,
One nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
visible
liberty
with
and
liberty and justice for all.
All right. I guess it's the thought that counts. Okay, next up, especially because we're doing this virtually, we'll just do a quick roll call. Marianne, are you ready to call that?
Sure. Ms. Thompson,
Here.
Ms. Siegel-Morris,
Here.
Mr. Ross,
Here.
Mr. Bria,
Here.
Mr. McCann,
Here.
Mr. Barry,
Here.
and Mr. Finer,
Here.
and Mayor Harding.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So before we move on to some business, I just want to quickly go over the logistics of how this is working tonight. I can see that we do have a few, it looks like, residents that have joined the call. I haven't gone through to name all of them, and residents that are on are probably muted at this point. If you wish to speak during public comment or during an item that we are discussing, we're going to use the hand raise function to handle that. So if you have logged in through the app on the participants screen, you should have a couple icons. There's a yes, there's a no. One of them is a hand raise. So you'll use that to indicate you will want to speak. If you have dialed in, you can indicate that by pressing *9 on your phone. And then we will be able to see on our end, or I will be able to see that you wish to speak on a matter. And then I will unmute you and you'll be able to offer your comment. With that, we will, actually, and before I go even further, there's just two changes to the agenda this evening. Under the police chief's report, we are going to remove the officer hiring. And then at the end of the agenda, under other business, we are going to add ratification of the disaster emergency declaration that Mayor Harding signed yesterday. So moving on with community announcements, I'll just use this time to do a brief update of what we have been dealing with so far with the COVID-19 epidemic. Mostly from a borough standpoint, we are trying to repeat information that is coming from the county and or the state. So most of this I'm sure you have heard before. But all restaurants are operating on takeout only, and they're also part of Governor Wolf's order is for non-essential businesses to close. There is guidance on the DCED website as to what is defined as essential versus non-essential. As far as retail goes, essentially, if it's something where you might pick up healthcare supplies or food, or just the type of things you need to go on with daily life, that would be considered essential, whereas other retail may not. A few other notes is that our police department, our EMS responders, fire department are continuing to operate normally. And in addition, public utilities will remain in service, and our trash and recycle pickup will, for the time being, remain on our normal schedule. So I guess Paula or the mayor, if there's anything else I missed there you want to add about what we've covered in the past few days, I'll turn it over to you.
Nothing from me. Mayor?
Nothing for me other than we've also looked at the calendar forward and made sure we don't have any future upcoming large attended events. So that's pretty clear for the foreseeable future.
All right, great. Thank you. And just to wrap up and summarize, we are in essentially daily communication between myself, Council Vice President Thompson, our borough manager, the mayor, Wes Breaker is our emergency management coordinator. If there are any changes, we are reviewing those on a daily basis. There are situation report updates from the county that are coming in daily. So we are keeping an eye on all of that. If anything were to change or information we need to get out, we would do that through the borough's social media channels and our website. All right, so that will conclude community announcements. We certainly have no other events going on at this time. At this point, we'll move on to public comment. And again, if you're on the call and wish to speak during public comment, you can use that raise hand function by pressing *9, and I will be able to see that you wish to speak during public comment.
This call is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect at this time.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to unmute a number that ends in 8005. I can't see your name, but you're on.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. It's Dawn Perlmutter. I just wanted to bring up something that occurred here. I'll try to do it briefly. I was sort of hoping that other people would discuss the virus health situation first, but there were numerous incidents of theft and vandalism to my property. In last year, I had 130-year-old cornerstone monuments that were stolen. Portions of my fence, which is a border marker, were stolen last spring and vandalized twice. And last week, when I returned home from a business trip, my fence was stolen from my property. 6 mature shade trees, including 2 memorial trees, were cut down. Several other very old trees had huge, large limbs cut off. 2 American flags were ripped down and stepped on, and religious items were stolen, and a memorial plaque was broken. The fence had recently been repaired, and I had just replaced one of the American flags that was desecrated 2 months ago. All of these incidents were reported to the Yardley Borough Police, and in almost every case, Chief Kelly designated it a civil dispute, including the most recent. Additionally, when I was away, a tall chain link fence, either 6 or 7 feet by 70 feet, was erected on my property without notification of any kind, although it obviously required access from my property to install. And I just want to clarify that I was in court twice with officials from Yardley Borough last year over property damage, and in both cases, the owners of the property next door who attempted to dispute the line. The first case was dismissed because they did not have a signed stamped land survey, and I did. Chief Kelly was present at that hearing. At the second hearing, the borough manager, Councilman Berry, the zoning officer, and the building inspector were present when the judge dismissed cases and clearly said it was a property line dispute that had to be resolved in Doylestown. So when I left for my business trip, the code enforcement officer had placed a stop work order on the building of any fence until the property line dispute was settled in Doylestown. So when I came back and saw all of this, I informed the borough manager, and in that very brief time I was away, she told me that the zoning officer determined that it was their property without notifying me or asking to see my survey. And the zoning officer, who does not keep office hours and really never responds to any of my inquiries, was not only available, but in 2 days' time, while I was out of town, granted zoning, gave permission to erect a fence on my property, immediately cut down trees, my fence was thrown out, the religious memorial was desecrated, and the flags were desecrated. And I'm almost done. It was also subsequently brought to my attention that my property and I were the subject of a discussion at the last public safety meeting regarding this issue. I really would like to know why I was the subject of a public safety meeting and what was said, and why I wasn't notified that I was going to be on that agenda. And finally, the police report that I received, that is not at this point making any charges, included an email from the zoning officer to Councilman Bria, Chief Kelly, the code enforcement officer, and the borough manager in regard to this incident. And it just read that it went as planned. So I guess, Councilman Bria, my question is, did the borough remove my border fence and cut down these shade trees, including the memorial trees? Because I still don't know who did what. I really would like to know how Yardley Borough officials have the authority to overrule a judge and determine my property line without even consulting me. And I'd also like to know, again, what was said at that public safety meeting and what the borough intends to do about this.
Thank you, Ms. Perlmutter. So to clarify, the borough obviously would not have removed, these materials from your yard. I know that this permitting of the fence was reviewed according to the standards that we would apply to any other property owner. But beyond that, especially in the form that we're in tonight, I think this might be more of a complex issue, not something we can resolve exactly at the moment. Although, certainly with the police reports that were filed, I would defer to the chief. We've been saying for quite some time, this is a civil matter and really does need to be resolved there. Ultimately, the borough is going to carry out the administrative functions that we're required to do, but it is not our place to be in between in what is essentially a resident dispute. And I guess.
But Mr. Bria, you were in between. You did make the zoning officer did determine to do that. So you did get in the middle of a civil dispute.
Mr. Perlmutter, as I said, the zoning officer handled the review of the permitting application as they would any other. Certainly, if we want to schedule some session to review this in more detail, that's something we can look at doing. I don't have all of the permit materials in front of me, nor would we ever during a council meeting. So I will just at this point defer, Paula, if there's anything you want to add here. Otherwise, I would recommend follow up on this issue.
Yeah, the property in question did fill out the proper zoning permits and building permits as well. The zoning officer was at the property. He did everything according to how we, even over and above how we handle any other property as well. So I do agree with you, David. I think this is something that maybe shouldn't be discussed tonight, perhaps at a future meeting.
Okay, I agree.
Can I just ask, while you're there, can Councilman Burry address what was said at a public safety meeting? Because I really would like to know why I was the subject of that meeting that involved this property. I mean, I think it's important, and I think, you can't just keep putting this off. We were in court. The zoning officer was in court and heard the judge say that this was a civil dispute, and he overrode the judge and decided to allow this to happen. And in terms of you saying that the borough would never cut down my trees, you did it once before. So it's actually not an unusual question. So I really, maybe during the meeting, when you're having the reports from the different committee meetings, maybe it can be done then, because I really would like to know why I was the subject of a public safety meeting.
I will defer to council members Barry and Siva Morris on that. It is their committee. However, I can say, having been in attendance at the meeting, to describe it as you being the subject of discussion, I think is inaccurate. I truly don't even recall this taking place, but certainly if during council reports we want to circle back on that, we can. All right, and as I said, I would recommend that we follow up to handle any further details or questions on this matter.
Hey, David, can I just characterize the subject at the meeting?
Sure.
It wasn't at the public safety meeting. It wasn't an agenda item, and it wasn't discussed in depth. It was brought up in passing. I forget exactly how it was brought up, but it was discussed for a few minutes, and we didn't make any decisions. It was just mentioned that the zoning officer might be considering this item.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. And with that, we're going to move on from here. If there's any other public comment, again, you can signify that by pressing *9 on your phone, or if you're logged into the app, by pressing the raise hand function or the raise hand icon. I'll give everyone just a moment to make sure I don't see any. All right, and I do not. So with that, we are going to move on to the consent agenda. Does any member of council or the mayor have an objection to considering all items on the consent agenda for tonight? All right, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda for tonight, March 17th, 2020.
This is Caroline, so moved.
Second.
All right, that's a motion by Councilperson Thompson, seconded by Councilperson Siegel Morris for adoption of the consent agenda. Is there any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries 7-0. With that, we'll move on to the police chief's report.
Thank you, sir. First item is at the request of the solicitor. As you're aware, sir, yesterday we signed a task force agreement with most of the other municipalities in Bucks County, known as the COVID-19 task force. This is essentially a mutual aid agreement between the 30-some participating police departments in the county, ensuring that if our department or another department is understaffed due to a virus-related illness, that we will assist one another in a time of need. And that was signed off for the record by you and I yesterday on March 16th. And a copy has been provided to the borough manager. The second item is the auxiliary police that we spoke about a few times. Pursuant to the borough code, the state borough code 53 PS 46121 and the auxiliary police law 53 731 to 736, we have drafted a draft ordinance for the formation of an auxiliary police unit of the Yardley Borough Police Department, which would be composed of volunteers in the community that would assist us with traffic and crowd control, assist us when there's wires down, assist us with special details, with augmenting our regular police force, which is desperately needed. We've used these volunteers in the past informally, but we'd like to codify it and have them under the umbrella of the police department for training and such. So tonight I seek concurrence of council to move this proposed ordinance over to the solicitor for legal review.
Okay. Bucky, do we just need consensus there, or should we make a motion for that?
It's probably best to make a motion, given how we're doing this.
Okay, agreed. So then do we hear a motion to refer the ordinance that Chief just discussed to the solicitor for legal review?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Councilperson Siegel Morris, seconded by Councilperson Thompson. Do we have any questions or discussion from council? All right, any questions, discussion from the public? Again, press *9 to be recognized. All right, hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, sir. And the last, I just wanted to give a quick update on where the police department is in readiness for the coronavirus response. Thus far, we have had no officers affected. We are at full staff. We've had no illnesses over the last couple of weeks, coronavirus related or not. So our officers are still reporting to work as scheduled. All our personal protective equipment, that was a challenge, has been acquired from multiple different sources. We still are on the request list for the county to get some additional personal protective equipment, but this is a challenge not only for law enforcement, fire, and EMS, all the emergency services, but also for the hospitals themselves. We've made some modification to our response plan to balance our mission against the risk to the officer. I think some of these modifications are working well. We are disinfecting cars and stations every single day. We're continuing to wash our hands. So we're taking all known precautions. We're working with our partners. We're talking to our partner police departments every day and staying in contact with Wes. So at present time and date, the state of the police department is highly ready, and I will keep you abreast of any changes in that. And that completes my report, sir.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Any members of council have follow-up questions there? All right, moving on to our engineer's report.
Hi there, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So we have two things that are not included in the project section, so I'll go over them quickly. The first one is we are working with the borough manager to try and identify those that could help with the appraisal, the potential appraisal for the Pico lot, and try and get some quotes for them so that we can make a decision at the next council meeting to move forward with that grant application. We've also looked into additional grants we could utilize to meet the 50% match that would be required. And we believe that the Growing Greener grant, which is the same one that EAC once applied for and is using for the watershed grant, that can be used for preservation of open space and such. We think that that is a viable avenue to try and make sure that we have the funds for the 50% match. We can apply for those types of things congruently. That's not unheard of. So we might want to look further into that. And then Yardley Walk, we worked with the HOA's hired engineering firm Bustamante, and we finalized that punch list. And we were trying to schedule a meeting to do a walkthrough with the developer Lennar. But at this point in time, I haven't gotten any confirmation if they're still wanting to move forward with how things have changed. We haven't seen construction shut down yet in other projects, so there's still opportunity for it to continue forward, but I haven't gotten any confirmation yet. Do I just move into the projects now, David?
Yeah, let's just, do we have any questions on those two items before we switch over to project updates?
Sure.
From council, and again, if a resident does, it's *9 to be recognized. All right, I don't see any there, so let's move on to the project updates.
Okay, so the project documents, first one is Main and Afton intersection. So at the end of the last meeting and then through follow-up from the mayor and the borough manager, RVE was requested to fully investigate the option to have a fully red phased pedestrian signal at Main and Afton. When I reached out to PennDOT and I forwarded this response to Paul, I'm not sure if anyone else has seen it yet. We just got it yesterday. So the response that I received was that the department typically only approves an all-ped phase for signals at locations with center city level pedestrian volumes. This is due to the excessive queuing and delay resulting from such an operation and potential increase in driver aggression as a result. Some alternatives would be an advanced pedestrian interval, which would hold the red longer when the button is pushed so that the pedestrian could lay claim to the crosswalk before drivers ever see the green. They said that this would be feasible for the crosswalks parallel to Afton, but would be difficult on Main Street due to the leading left turn arrow on Main Street. So if we want to pursue that particular option, we can do so. However, that would reopen the approval of our plans to PennDOT, And with that potentially delaying our construction, and we have quite a tight deadline with having to reach the 80% invoicing to hold on to our grant funding, RV at this point in time does not suggest pursuing that. But to have that phasing changed in the signals would not change any of the construction. To get that to go through, I don't think that would take too long for us to do over the summer once we get past that 80% threshold that we need to make sure we don't jeopardize our grant funding.
Okay, great. So what it sounds like there is that's something we should move forward with the construction so we don't lose the funding, but we could revisit this basically to get the programming changed at a later time.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask
Yeah,
one
David, if I could
something
just
about
jump
that?
in.
Let's
Yeah.
let Tom and then Ori can go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just jumping in real quick on that. I think we talked about it at the last meeting. We really ought to, let's get it in. The signal's going to look different. The poles are different. The location of the box, which is one of the main sticking points there, right by the jewelers there, right across from Starbucks. Being a blind spot, but that box is moving. So I think once we get it in, we're not going to have as many blind spots but hopefully not have as many blind spots as we have now. So, our recommendation is, again, let's get it in, and then we play it by ear. We can always go back and amend it. That's easier than trying to do it now and delaying things.
All right.
That's it.
Understood. And then Ori, you had a comment.
Yeah, well, I guess the most dangerous spot is the Main Street crossing, because people make that right turn. And when you go from the bank to the jewelry store, that is very dangerous. For anyone who spends any time there, I understand what you're saying, Tom. It's going to be structured differently, but it's dangerous, and someone's eventually going to get hit. I hope it's not a kid. I hope it's not a stroller. But when that happens, this meeting is recorded. Here we are talking about it. What it's really important, I agree we should get this in. It just seems that it makes sense not to hold it up, but we should plan on doing the leading pedestrian interval for Afton, just because they told us we could do it. But I would like to know what it would take to do that on Main Street as well, because that's the one that I think is the most dangerous. And I have almost been hit there multiple times. It's a ridiculously unsafe crossing. We can't just be lackadaisical about it. It's a serious issue.
I also have almost been hit, Ori.
Yeah. So it's.
Okay, well, let's get it in, and then we
yeah.
can start the process after we get it installed. How's that? So.
Well, can you start the process? Can you start getting installed when it's already in? I mean, can you do the background work to get it? I don't want to kick a can down the road. I think I understand we don't want to hold it up, but beyond that, let's move towards that, because I think we all want that.
I can certainly go back and ask them, like he said, predominantly they use that kind of phasing for center city level crossings. But if we need to do a ped count or other things like that, or do other kind of investigative studies to show that this is needed, we could certainly start that process. You're right, Uri. That wouldn't require us having to reopen the current plans that we have for the signal. So we can look into, if we wanted to push forward with this process, what would they need from us? And we could start working on that, but not at this time reopen our current plans.
Correct. Because I think the prudent thing to do is to fix. It's going to be better than it is now. We have to work in increments, but we just don't want to delay. We know we're going to want it. I think. I don't want to. If anyone's opposed to that, speak up. But I think it's been going on for years. So my sense is everybody wants to make that crossing as safe as possible.
Yeah, I agree that we definitely need to look into that and do that. But it is going to be, after everything's in, it might be a little bit better just with the poles changing and everything also. So I would say have the engineer look into exactly what it's going to take so we can start it right afterwards, after everything's all set. But definitely see what the impact is after it's all done also.
Okay.
No problem.
Yeah, so it sounds like we have a course of action outlined there that, we won't at this time do anything that would delay the project, but we can maybe have our engineers start looking at the preliminary steps so that once we do the work, or the work is completed to make sure that we get the grant funding, that we can move as quickly as possible into changing the timing there. So just before we move on, is there any other further conversation on that, council or residents? Again, it's *9 to be recognized. Much longer list now. Don't see any. So, okay, Liz, back to you. Moving on.
Okay, and then the next project on the agenda, I believe, is for the bridge. I forwarded this along to Caroline and Matt, Ross, and Paula because we just heard back from Gator Bridges this afternoon. They finally gave us their operations and maintenance plan for the Gator Bridge. So at this point in time, I should have all of the attachments I need for the submittal to PHMC to submit for both the FRP and the Gator Bridge option. And that is how we are moving forward. So I will let you all know when that gets officially submitted, but we've been working on putting those attachments together and getting that package to where it needs to be. That's about all I have with regards to the Mayor Yardley Bridge.
So I have a question.
Yes, question. I didn't catch who it was, but go ahead.
Yeah, so Liz, I just wanted to know, so we haven't submitted yet to the PHMC. You had to wait until that. So we have no way of knowing right now which direction or what will be approved. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to
We do know that between the conversation that Paula had directly with DCNR and PHMC, that they were quite amenable to the aluminum option. We don't have direct approval with regards to the epoxy, but we do all feel strongly that that is the better coating option instead of the powder coating. But when I spoke to Devin, he didn't seem to think that that was something that they would really have any issue with, but we don't have the same sort of level of response from PHMC yet about the epoxy coating. But yeah, the goal right now is to just submit all of the information for both options, hopefully get approved for both options, and then bid out both and see what happens and move from there.
All right. Excellent. Further questions on that? All right. Looks like none.
All right, and then the last one is the 2019 program. We have just about received all the necessary documents from General Asphalt to move forward with closing that out. We expect to be able to do that by the end of this week. I'm not sure how many on council are aware of this, but the borough received a letter from a third-party auditor that was doing an audit on General Asphalt, and they sent a letter that it seemed like the borough was owed a little over $8,000 to General Asphalt, and so Paula asked us to take a look into that and figure out what was going on. And our construction manager was able to determine that this auditor kind of did their work a little bit too early. So that money was based off of the fact that we still have the retainer money. And then there was a slight discrepancy with one of the quantities that they put through. And they're requesting a letter to be sent from the engineer to verify all. So we're gonna wait until we do the formal closeout so that we see the final numbers and then have a conversation with them to make sure that they understand that, you know, even if their person turned in a certain number of quantities, what was approved out in the field with our inspector is all that they're owed. But we're continuing to take care of that and figure that out. And then I think that's all that I have to talk about.
All right. Thank you. So just one more chance. Any follow-up questions from council, or again, if residents have questions, it's *9 from your phone or the hand raise function from the app. All right, it doesn't look like any. So we will then move on to the manager's report.
Okay, as some of you might have noticed, the intersection work did begin this week, and it's probably the one good thing about the shutdown and everything this week is that the traffic has been very light. And unfortunately, the chief had to visit them already on site because they started to work a little too early, but he spoke to the foreman and ironed all that out to make sure they're starting when they're supposed to. As you all know, the office is closed to the public, but Patty and I continue to work. We keep bouncing in and out. We are answering any calls, any messages that get left, any emails. Really haven't been too much. I think the public is really getting a lot of information from TV and newspapers and everything else. So everything has been pretty quiet. We are seeing a good response from a big mailing that Patty sent out for some delinquent trash accounts. So all that money's starting to come in. And by the end of this week, we should have our first payment from the taxes from Cheryl. And that's about it on my end.
All right, great. Thank you. Any questions for our borough manager? All right, we'll then move on to Mr. Klosser for a solicitor's report.
Yes, nothing real specific other than obviously we've been very busy addressing legal issues regarding the current emergency situation, with all of our clients and municipalities that we work with. Our office remains open for business, mostly working remotely. So, email and my cell phone number are probably the best ways to get a hold of me if need be. Because sometimes the general number is not being answered by our receptionist. So that's basically it for my report at this point.
All right, thank you. And with that, we'll move on to council member reports. I imagine that we're not going to have a lot here because we are canceling all of our upcoming committee meetings through the 30th, but we'll still go through one by one just to give each member an opportunity if there's anything we want to present on. So I'll begin with Mr. Barry.
David, sorry
Yes.
to interject. I think we skipped over Mayor Harding.
Oh, I did. Sorry. Let's backtrack. Mr. Mayor, your report.
So David, I was going to give you a compliment, but now I may change my speech. So
I blew it.
So couple quick, just real quick. So first of all, we use today's Yardley Borough on our radio show to promote the Yardley Borough businesses and encourage people to still come in, get takeout. I mean, obviously it focused mostly on the eating establishments, but all the places to come in, get takeout, get delivery, buy gift cards. So it was a good hour of promoting our local businesses. And then secondly, I just want to, one thing we've learned from floods to September 11th to all of this, is communication is key, not only amongst ourselves, but to our residents. And I do want to take just a quick second and recognize the efforts of Council President David Bria, Paula Johnson, Chief Kelly, and Wes Foraker. I think to this point, you guys have all done an excellent job in communication, and I think that's the key to helping everyone get through this. So that's it for my report.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Now back to where I jumped the gun. Our council member reports. We'll begin with Mr. Barry.
The Reading Avenue Committee meeting has been canceled, and I suppose it's canceled indefinitely, but until we see what happens with the virus. But we can still look into those grants that we applied to before, and I think that's the best approach for now until we see if we can have some sort of event. At this point, I'm just not sure. And then EAC hasn't met since our last meeting. That's all.
All right. Thank you. Moving on to Mr. Ross.
Public Works has been canceled, so nothing to report there. And Planning Commission did not meet, so nothing to report. And hopefully next month we'll have our Public Works meeting, and this will all be behind us. So I'll have a report then.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Siegel-Morris.
Public safety has not met since our last meeting, and neither has the airport that I'm aware of.
All right, thank you. Yes, lots of no meetings. Myself, for the sewer authority, I do just have a quick update. I think Mr. Barry asked me a question about just what's been happening with Morrisville Municipal Authority and the sewage plant project there. So I did get an opportunity to speak with Tom Jennings, who is the solicitor for MMA. And essentially, and unfortunately, we are mostly in the same holding pattern that we have been in for several months, which is that Lower Makefield Township is still making a decision as to whether or not they are going to sell or retain their system, which ultimately complicates the overall deal because there's no commitment from Lower Makefield Township that if a new plant is built, that they would be part of that system. So what's happening at this point essentially is that MMA is moving forward with the land deal, so to acquire the land where this plant would be built. And that is the sort of thing that it's not something like they just sign on the dotted line and it's done and you can never go back. It's something that's going to take quite some time. But as we wait for essentially Lower Makefield to make a decision, they're trying to move forward where they can, which is mostly with the land deal. But other than that, there is not much new information to report regarding that large project. That concludes what I have on sewer, so we'll turn it over to Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say happy St. Patrick's Day and happy birthday to John McCann and David Bria. Thank you for spending your birthday serving your community. In terms of business, we are carefully following interest rates and how they will affect our finances. Under general government, Santander, which is one of our banks, has been in touch with the borough manager regarding the Fed rate reduction and how that will affect our basis point. They did reduce it to 1 BPS, but we just got another email that they might be reducing it again. So we're carefully following that situation, and I hope to have a clearer picture of how that will affect us at our next meeting. We also have been looking into preliminarily the near zero interest rates and how we might leverage that for the sidewalk and bridge, and we hope to come again with some proposals just for consideration. I think it's important with interest rates so low that we at least talk about it as a council and consider this as an option for funding these projects that until now have been a little out of reach. That's all from general government. For Parks and Rec, the Easter egg hunt on April 4th was canceled, and they are looking into what will be involved in canceling the races. However, they are holding off for now as those aren't until May. Keeping an eye on the walk to run, which begins on April 14th. That's all I have to report.
All right, thank you. Mr. McCann.
I don't have anything to report. I just want to thank again the chief, Mayor Harding, Council President Bria, and Paula. You've done a wonderful job. I mean, these are trying times, and having a steady hand in ushering us through this, and even setting up this meeting to kind of have some semblance of order and conduct some business in the way we do this, and using technology is fantastic. So I want to thank all of you for all your efforts, and certainly look forward to report more in the future.
All right, thank you, John. Finally, Mr. Feiner. Did we lose Ori?
Are you on mute, Ori?
Okay, can you hear me now? I just want to echo the thanks to the people who've been mentioned. John just mentioned, but I think that the residents of the borough really appreciate feeling like things are being handled to the extent that we can, and they really are. So I want to thank everyone for that. Community outreach did not meet since the last meeting. However, we did receive an application for human relations, which we'll be following up on as soon as we can meet again and have an interview, and et cetera. I did work with Paula to start making some improvements to the website, primarily around the COVID-19 information. So The bar on the very top no longer says truck survey. It now has information for residents about the virus. And the main page has leading information, which is the information about this meeting. And we'll keep improving that as necessary to get the word out.
Those website updates look excellent. Thank you to you and Paula for getting that done.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ori.
Hey, David, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So for committees, do we expect the committees to meet? And if so, will they be virtual, so to speak, so the public can join?
Right. So I actually was thinking about this today because our initial statement obviously said that we're canceling all the committee meetings, focusing on not having any in-person meetings at Borough Hall. But I think in regards to our committees, if there is business that needs to be handled in a timely fashion, we obviously now have a Zoom account for the borough. If the chairs of those committees want to set something up to conduct that at the normal time, I think that's something we can look at doing. Otherwise, I would just recommend, as a group, sort of keeping an eye on things. I'm imagining that most business items are going to slow down through this period. But yes, I would say if something comes up that we want to handle in a timely fashion, right, we do have those committee meetings advertised at their normal time. We could just move them into the Zoom setting instead of over at Borough Hall. So I'll leave that to the discretion of the committee chairs.
I'll just add for the use of Zoom, if you spend less than 40 minutes on a meeting, it's free for any number of participants. So essentially, instead of buying licenses for each of us to have a meeting with our committee, you could just basically sign up for a free account and have the meeting and just post, send the information to Paula and she could, it could all be posted that that meeting is actually happening.
Right. That would work. And we do at the time, we just have the one license, which we're going to use for these, committee meetings normally being under that 40 minutes.
Exactly.
On the free service. All right, thank you. Any other follow-ups for committee, councilperson reports? All right, our next item would just be any miscellaneous discussion items. Are there any other business items that wish to be considered? All right, and hearing none, we'll move to our last item for other business, which is a ratification of the disaster emergency declaration that Mayor Harding signed yesterday. So this was at the suggestion of our solicitor, Mr. Kloster, that council would make a motion to ratify this document, which again has already been signed and submitted to the county. So do I hear a motion to ratify the declaration?
David, I'll make a motion to ratify the declaration with no modification.
Second. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, so we have the motion from Mr. Barry, seconded by Ms. Thompson, to ratify the emergency declaration as written. Does council have any questions or discussion on that item?
I'm just wondering, David, and I'm not sure who can answer this, maybe Bucky. So the council needed to ratify this within 7 days, but then after that, how long does this stay into effect, or do we have to make some sort of motion to remove the emergency declaration?
Well, actually, am I on mute? No, I'm fine. Actually, what I was going to suggest for council to do, the Emergency Management Services Code speaks of a 7-day limitation on the declaration unless it's extended with the consent of the governing body. Obviously, the emergency we're in is not going to end within 7 days. So once the declaration is ratified, I would suggest a second motion to authorize the mayor to extend it, as he sees fit under the circumstances.
Thanks, Bucky.
Okay, so first motion on the table is just to ratify the document as written. Are there further questions or discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none, I will call the question. Excuse me, let me unmute Wes there. I saw the hand go up. All right, Wes.
It looks like he's talking and he's not on mute, but I can't hear him. His mouth is moving.
He does that at work sometimes.
Oh, now you are on mute again, Wes.
I can't hear.
Yeah, it looked like we're having some technical.
Wes, if you check your preferences, there's like a sound input thing in the preferences. Maybe it's set to the wrong thing.
We need our IT folks to remote in.
Just give him another second to see if he gets it figured out there.
You could use the chat function and type.
Do that. Yeah, you can type, and we can say what you typed.
He just texted me and he says he's just confirming what Bucky says, that they would have to redo the declaration next week. We have to redo the declaration next week. I don't know. I thought it stayed open until we closed it, from what I remember.
Yeah. Again, we're kind of on a separate motion in this discussion, but the declaration can be extended only with the consent of the governing body. So what I'm suggesting is that you basically grant the authority to the mayor to extend it under the circumstances, as he sees fit. So that will allow him to extend it next week, and then the week after that, or however long this will last.
Okay, I see.
All right, so understood. So again, the motion on the table is first for the ratification of the document as written. So do we have further discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries 7-0. So at this time, we will entertain the motion that it would essentially allow the mayor to extend that emergency declaration at his discretion.
I'll make that motion, David. I make a motion to authorize the mayor to extend the declaration of disaster emergency regarding the novel coronavirus under the circumstances as the mayor sees as appropriate while the emergency lasts.
We have a motion. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right, so we'll have that motion made by Mr. Barry, seconded by Ms. Thompson. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, real quick, it's Mayor Harding. So I will just let you guys know that we will notify you of each extension and also notify everyone of the ultimate termination. So we'll keep everybody in the loop as it moves forward.
Okay, any other discussion, questions from council members?
David, I was just thinking maybe it would be useful for the public to know what this declaration does. Can we characterize it for people briefly?
Yes, and in this again, I'll probably be better to defer to Paula or Bucky on it. One of the big things it does is entitles us to some reimbursement for some of the expenses we would incur. But Paula or Bucky, if you want to elaborate that or on that, or if Wes is able to chime in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, number one, it will enhance the authority of borough officials to take action as it's necessary to protect the health and welfare of the citizens of the borough, and that action can be undertaken without regard to the legal constraints as to bidding or hiring or things of that nature. So it will essentially streamline the process to the extent necessary to deal with the emergency.
Thanks.
Thank you. answer your question, Ryan?
Yeah, I just wanted to give people a sense of what it was.
All right, perfect. And I do see that we have a resident that has their hand up, but I'll just first, any other questions, concerns from council on that motion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to unmute the number that ends 8005.
Hi, am I on?
You're on.
Oh, I just wanted to know if you could publish that on the site somewhere, because I just really would like to see what's in these amendments and how much authority the borough actually has over citizens in that. I mean, I'm just not sure if it's just about finances or if it goes even further in terms of this unique situation we're in.
All right, thank you. And Buck, I'll defer to Bucky again, but I'm assuming this would be a public document.
Yes, it should certainly be made public as widely as you can, probably.
Right. So yes, we can certainly post that website, social media. We can include it in the minutes for next time as well. I think would be appropriate.
Great, thank you.
Also, I think this the declaration is referencing part of the code, correct? So when you go on the website, there's a section for Code of Ordinances, and you should be able to see what that declaration entails. Am I correct in that?
Well, it also references state law, so you'll need access
State
to
law,
state
okay.
statutes.
But you should be able to get all of that
That's
online.
all yes, exactly. It's all available publicly.
In other words, we're not creating anything new, just turning on a switch.
No, there's a specific statute that provides for this authority, and that's, again, in the state statute books.
We will post to Facebook and put on the website as well, so that anybody who wants to see it can see it.
All right. Great. So just to recap, the motion we have on the floor right now is to grant the mayor the authority to extend this declaration for the duration of the emergency as he sees fit. Do we have further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. All right, so that concludes our normal business for tonight. Before we take the motion to adjourn, I just want to say thank you very much to everyone. This entire process has been a journey, and certainly seeing whether or not this meeting format would work can be counted among that. And before we do go, I'm just going to see another resident's asking to be recognized, so I'm going to unmute you now for that comment. I'm sorry, I may have missed that before.
No problem. Just a quick question for, I think, all of you to ponder. This is James Jordan. I live on Canal Street. I'm concerned about the numbers of young people that are out of school, that are running around the borough in packs on bicycles and collecting themselves at the back of Wawa. I think if we're concerned about the spread, I think some limit on the numbers of these kids just hanging out in places is of concern to me. I went to Wawa the other night, and I think there were probably 10 or 12 at the back exit as you walk in. And, if we're concerned about carrier situation, I think we should all be concerned. And I don't know if we've thought about this, but I've seen it twice now, and it's enough to make me a little concerned and walk the other way. So I'm just putting that on the table. I don't know how y'all want to deal with it, but I think it might be something either the mayor or the chief can figure out how to deal with. It may be just keeping an eye out and breaking them up or whatever, but it's a concern.
All right, thank you, Mr. Jordan. We'll certainly keep that in mind.
Great.
With the school closures, we're certainly going to see a lot of changes, and this is one of them. So we'll be aware.
Good, thank you.
All right, thank you. All All right, as I said, I believe that concludes this evening. So at this time, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night. That concludes.
Good night. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yo.
Both of you.
Hey, happy birthday. Be safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.